You're listening to Across the Pondcast. Cybersecurity rants and war stories from both sides of the Atlantic.
Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I am Tib3rius. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host with huge muscles, Mr. Andy Swift. Andy, how have you been?
I've been editing the show notes.
I completely forgot you'd done that. I noticed it last time.
Sorry. So how are you? How are you, Snuggle Goblin?
This is the weirdest episode yet.
It's going to get worse.
I'm going to edit this out.
No, you're not.
I'm fine. The title of today's episode is the one where they talk about AI. Classic Friends reference there. We're going to be talking about AI and how it relates to pen testing. I think we have some opinions. I hope we do.
Yeah, otherwise this is, we're lost already if we don't have any opinions on anything. Sort of defeats the point, doesn't it? We've already got further than we did last time we tried to record this, because last time we tried to record this, we just got distracted by Sea of Thieves. So
that's true. Very good game, though.
It's been around a long time. I still love it. Sailing the seas. Secret pirate at heart.
The Seas of Thieves. Anyway, before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. So let's take a moment to tell you who is sponsoring today's episode. This AI-themed episode is sponsored by Portswigger, and it just so happens that AI has also officially landed in Burp Suite Professional. There are 5 brand new AI-powered features available designed to supercharge your workflow. We're talking Explore Issue for instant context on vulnerabilities, Explain This for AI-powered breakdowns of complex requests and responses, AI-recorded logins for seamless authenticated scanning, and false positive reduction, specifically tuned for access control issues. Plus, you can now build AI-powered extensions directly with the Montoya API. To help you hit the ground running, Burp Suite is giving every user 10,000 free credits to try out these new AI-enhanced features. Want to learn more? Head to portswigger.net/burp/AI and see how Burp AI can transform your security testing. So, let's define a few things. I think when we say AI, generally, we just mean LLMs, right?
Yeah. It's become like one of those things. Everyone's got hold of a term, and all of the terms are sort of merged, and yeah, it's just confusing the crap out of everyone now.
It's annoying. It still annoys me, only because when I did my computer science degree back in the early
1800s,
I did a machine learning course, and we actually learned proper AI techniques. And now everyone's like, AI, and it's like, no, that's not really AI, but okay. Anyway, I've developed proper like AI scripts for breaking captchas in the past. So it's just annoying when you have LLMs come along and just basically claim the term for themselves. But whatever, I'm over it. So LLMs, I guess that we should probably talk about ChatGPT first. That's like the go-to LLM. I feel like that was the big one that sort of exploded onto the scene, and then everything else came after, right?
Never heard of it. The end of the podcast. Yeah, it was kind of the first that got like big commercial backing, and everyone jumped on. It's the one everyone knows, everyone good. It's like the new. I'll just Google that term, isn't it? I'll go and ChatGPT it. It doesn't have a ring to it. We'll work on that.
I'll go Bing it.
Go Bing it. No one's ever said that.
Copilot it.
No one's ever said
Gemini
Bing it in the
it.
history of man. I'll just go Bing that. No.
Not even the Bing team at Microsoft use that.
No. And if you do, you should be shot.
I bet they're like, I'm going to go Google it on Bing.
I do love that. It's one of the first things I do if I'm like installing a Windows server or something. First thing I do is I go and Google a different browser immediately. It's the first thing to do every time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Should we start with how it's changed landscapes? Because it's been seismic, really, hasn't it?
Yes. And I think it's honestly, I mean, I use it in different ways, but I think the key way a lot of pen testers, I feel, will use it is just as a reference, right? It's honestly that's how I kind of use ChatGPT just generally sometimes. It's kind of a replacement for Google. And I got to be careful with that because obviously, Google is the de facto way of finding information online. But Google itself is a search engine. It has a very specific query language that you have to kind of use. Whereas you can just type regular English to ChatGPT and it will go search the web and it will come back with stuff. And yes, ChatGPT can lie to you. It definitely can. It definitely tells you this as well. But the fact is, if you are using it like as a resource just to search, it will link you to the sources it's used, which is kind of nice. So you can actually, and this is what I do, I'll click through to all the articles it finds and make sure that it's not just made something up. Which, sometimes it does. Quite often, actually. But anyway, I think in terms of just a nice, quick way of referencing and just getting information that you actually want very quickly without you having to go through and read 5 different articles from Google results, right? It can give you a pretty good summary of those same 5 articles that you would have read anyway, which I think is the key thing.
So even when you were Googling stuff, you'd have to go back 3 pages of stuff just to make sure it was the right stuff anyway. And because there's a lot of junk content out there. And I think in some ways, especially for like coding and things like that, it was quite easy to come across websites that would give you really, really bad advice and really insecure ways of developing things, like terrible ways of developing things. So I think in some like low-level cases, it's acted as a bit of a barrier for that sort of stuff. But what's interesting for me is the way it's sort of helped along pen testers and how different pen testers are using it now. And that is something I'll talk about because we spoke about in previous episodes about do you need to code to be a good pen tester or a good red teamer and such. And the interesting thing is now you've got a wave of pen testers who, like the junior levels, that might not have scripted stuff before, might not have learnt Python or any other scripting language. And that learning curve is quite a learning curve. If you've never developed and you've taken like the pure sort of offensive route in, you've done like your SCP or something like that, and you've skipped the whole I can code part of it, then you've gone there. It can act as quite a nice way to sort of bring you up to speed almost. And you've now got things like juniors putting together scripts really quickly and really easily through stuff like ChatGPT. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be like a little helper for something you do on a regular basis. On like every test you go to, you just get a bit sick of a repetition and you want something that will just script that out for you. It could be as simple as like banner grabbing or something daft like that, or comparing different TLS versions. I don't know, something easy. So yeah, it's kind of brought that to the masses a little bit more, getting people a little bit more involved. I'm kind of all for that, as long as people are learning from it. And I think that's a big thing. They're not just sort of going, well, this is the best way to code this. And they're sort of learning from it and going, I understand that. I think I can improve on that by doing this. And because it's quite, I think when you're using it for a lot of people, it's quite easy just to click on that copy button when it's written you some code. You just go, just dump this in. Oh, there it works. Great. But it's actually most of them are quite good at reasoning and telling you why it works and why it's a good idea or why something's a bad idea. So, yeah, read the stuff.
Yeah, I will say, I think, so there are definitely times when I've used it for just quick coding stuff, even though I do know how to code. But I think it can be interesting. Obviously, everybody should still learn how to code, honestly, Absolutely. Just because it's a really nice skill. But you can also use ChatGPT to learn, like you said. Like you can, if you don't know how to do something, like say in Python, if you don't know, okay, how do I send an HTTP request in Python? You can ask that to ChatGPT and it will give you some code and you can build on that. So one of the really nice features of ChatGPT is the canvas mode, right? Where you can sort of collaboratively, it's not really collaborating if it's AI, I guess. But anyway, you can like describe what you want and then, ask ChatGPT to add more stuff or add this feature or change this. And it will just build on the same sort of result. So it'll have like the canvas there with all the code, and it'll just keep regenerating that specific canvas, which is quite nice. So that bit I think is nice. I will say it's definitely still gets things wrong a lot with coding. One of the things I've used it for, and this is like not really related to pen testing, but I think it can be useful, is creating CTF challenges. So if you come across some kind of vulnerability or think of this would be a nice vulnerability to see in like a CTF challenge, you can get ChatGPT to generate the files, the Docker script, right? The Docker file, everything. And then you can, put all that in a folder and run it, and it will fail, probably. But then, so I've done this recently with for some reason I needed a Tomcat server running JSP not JSP actually. It was actually a compiled Java app. So like one of those war files. I think they're called war or war because it's jar.
I've gone for war just because what is it good for? Yeah, it sounds better and it goes with a song.
What is it good for? Deploying apps on Tomcat. That's what it's good for.
Yes.
So I've got it to do that, and the code all worked. But then all I wanted to do was when you browse to the root directory, so like I think it was port 3000 and just a / I wanted it to just redirect to the app. And my goodness, ChatGPT can come up with 3 different ways to do it and none of them work. And it was an absolute pain just to try and get this one, which you'd think would be a pretty simple feature to just work properly. And yeah, so it's interesting because how I did solve it, I just kept like feeding the debug messages back into ChatGPT and be like, what's going on? And then it's like, oh, this is why. And it's like, if you know why did you give me dodgy code to begin with?
I like that, bro. She basically just brute forced ChatGPT until it broke down and decided to give you a right answer.
It's honestly, it's pretty good at debugging. So that's the fun. Well, it's a paradox, really, because it creates the code in the first place, which is buggy, and then it can debug the code, and it's like, but why? If you knew how to debug this code already, why did you give me buggy code in the first place? I know why. People in the comments, you don't have to say why. I know it's an LLM. It's not actually AI. This is why. But still, it's kind of funny and kind of paradoxical.
It is. Are any of those you mentioned 3 like different ways of doing it? Were any of those ways just completely made up? Because I see this quite a lot.
I don't think so. They were all sort of rooted in truth. I think one of the issues is just doing this generally in Tomcat apparently is pretty difficult. But yeah, and none of them seem to be actually made up. They just, I think, were for completely different situations.
So I get this a lot, and I do a bit of game development as well, as you probably know you do anyway, in Unreal Engine, and it's interesting. Like if you're doing raw code, it tends to like give you like fairly sort of sensible answers most of the time, and if you're using something framework based, like obviously Unreal Engine is, and it'll come up with like, oh yeah, you should use this function. Like function doesn't exist; it's never existed. And it's like, did you make that up? And it goes, oh yeah, no, I did make that up, yeah. As if it's like trolling you or something. Oh, thanks. Well, can you use one that maybe, I don't know, you haven't made up? I don't know. That'd be really handy. Like a function that's actually within the engine would be nice. Thank you. And yeah, it's I've had that quite a few times. But as a low level, as an entry into scripting, for people that haven't perhaps been able to take that sort of path to learning coding before they get into something like pen testing, and they struggle to kind of get what's in their head into code and kind of articulate it. ChatGPT offers that really nice interface of just being able to, you could just blurt words at it. Sometimes even incoherent babble, and it will still put something together that's vaguely what you want out the other end of it. It's quite amazing, really. But I think it's enabled a lot of people at that sort of entry level to get their ideas down on paper, basically, and get that sort of translation from what's in their head into some kind of pseudocode they can work with. So yeah, nice entry.
Yeah, giving I wouldn't say talentless, but I'm going to use the word talentless because I include myself in this. Giving talentless people the ability to do stuff that they otherwise couldn't. Like a lot of people who know me know I create AI music with like Suno, right? And I don't make any claims that I'm a musical artist or that, I'm creating the music, right? I'm creating AI music. I'm very specific. I never, claim anything otherwise. But I don't really play any musical instruments. I can't really sing, but it's just nice that I have this avenue where I can sort of be creative while also being completely talentless in in this particular aspect. So yeah, I mean, it's nice. I think if it's a talent that you can because I don't, learning an instrument is difficult, and if you don't have any musical talent, I think it's always going to be difficult. Whereas I think most people can learn how to program, because I think programming, while it does require a little bit of creativity sometimes, it's definitely more logic based, and I feel like there are more people who understand. Well, it's logic plus language, right? All programming language. I mean, it really sucks for anyone who doesn't speak English. It's just, for some reason, all programming languages are in English, and I feel really bad for anyone. I mean, actually, I don't know that. Maybe there are languages that are written in foreign languages. I don't know. But most of them seem to be written in English. And so I really feel bad for people who don't speak English, because I feel like it's definitely easier to be a programmer if you know English, because all of the keywords are in English.
American English as well, in some cases. That drives me nuts.
Oh, well, obviously. I mean, that's the only kind of English.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Across the podcast, we endorse American English here.
Take our language back, thank you. Let's start a war.
You won't win.
Probably not, no. Just stop using Zs. But yeah, that caught me out when I was first learning to go, especially in things like HTML, like color and color, different spellings, and yeah, all sorts. See, you got to learn them all, man. Yeah.
To be fair, you just have to remove the U. That's all you need to do.
So, that's a lot of brain power for me.
At least there's no aluminum attribute.
The face I'm pulling right now, for those that just got audio. I just can't. I can't. It's so back to AI. Serious face. It has wormed its way into pen testing tools. And I can't say I've used a huge amount of them, because I suppose the problem is in the early days of using all these tools, we basically said, when they first came out, just be careful with them, use them as pointers, as references. And I think the advice is still pretty much the same for most pen testers, is don't stick client information in there. Don't paste I don't know, incident response logs in there and ask it what the hell it means. Don't do that. That's silly. So I think there's a lot of reluctance when we do have things like pen testing tools that do claim to use AI in the background, or LLM models, to make sense of data and things like that, and various requests, and come to conclusions with it. The trouble is where is it farming it off to? Are you in control of a model it's being farmed off to? And where does your data go? It's that age-old question of, where does my data disappear to? Mm-hmm. And I've got a guy on my team, actually, who's working on an interesting project with our own LLMs in-house. So he's got it basically takes dumps of results from various different vulnerability scanners and inputs from things like port scanners and stuff, and it feeds those results to an LLM as well as a side to what it's doing in the background, just as a sort of sanity check to grab stuff that's oh, have you thought of this? Have you seen this? And it's reasonably accurate, but sending that sort of information off to a third party is just, no, can't be doing that. So it's why we've set our own up internally, and we've also done that to basically get people juniors and stuff well versed in setting up LLMs and understanding it, because there's a lot of testing companies out there now who are offering services in that area now, testing LLM integrations and testing LLMs themselves. So it's an interesting world, and as you and I have discussed previously, there aren't too many courses on learning this stuff, apart from seemingly one guy on Udemy who's got 1-star review from about 53 different reviews. So it's we need to go through that course. We should do it. It'd be quite funny. But yeah, there's a lot of people scrambling for information. Best way is always just to go out there and do it and build stuff yourself, I find. So yeah, but Burp Suite's got an AI plugin, hasn't it? That's more your area than mine, to be honest.
It's not a plugin. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. So I had two things I think relate to that. So firstly, and I'll give a shout out because I know this guy personally, but I'm actually doing an AI masterclass this coming week. So by the time this episode airs, it will probably be a few weeks. But yeah, Joseph Thacker, I don't know if you know him. I believe he's Res Zero, his hacker name. He's been in AI security for a while now, so he has a masterclass on how to hack AI agents and applications, which I will be attending. So this is just a shout out because I know Joseph. So. But the other thing I wanted to mention was, so another guy I know on Twitter, Mick Douglas, he's Better Safety Net, at Better Safety Net. He did a tweet recently, which is literally stop trying to put AI into all security tools. And I think this goes back to the whole concept of AI versus LLM, because there is a big difference, and the biggest difference is LLMs are generative, right? So the thing is, AI can solve a lot of problems, and it can do it in a deterministic way. By which I mean, if you give it the same inputs, you're always going to get the same outputs, right? Because that's how problems should get solved. The issue with LLMs and other generative AIs is they're non-deterministic, at least by default. They can be made deterministic. I will say that. But it's very difficult, and most commercially available LLMs are not. And even if they do have controls for making them more deterministic, as far as I can tell, there's no popular LLM out there that is wholly deterministic. So you'll get similar information out of them if you input the same thing like 3 times. You'll get very, very similar results, but it won't be completely identical. And that's a problem. And he went over this we'll link to his tweet in the episode description. But he went over a lot of this, and his example was like, log or forensic evidence. If you put the same log or forensic evidence into any kind of analysis tool, it should come back with the same thing if you submit it multiple times, right? In fact, you'd argue that's pretty much a big requirement for forensics, right? You're the forensics guy.
Mm. Yeah, repeatable results are quite important. Yeah. If they change every time, you've got a problem with your instant response process.
Yeah. And so this is the thing. When a lot of these companies say AI, all they really mean is LLM. And that's a big problem because it's generative. Or generative? I can't ever remember which one it is. And so you have this issue where you could send the same results into the same program 2 different times and come up with completely different, like sometimes wildly different results, which is really bad for security.
Yeah, it is. With forensics and stuff like that, an instant response, you are reviewing the logs a lot of the time. And yes, you do want stuff to be repeatable, but it sometimes depends on the volume and your reliance or over-reliance on something like AI tooling. If you're pasting in too much and getting different results each time, yeah, of course you are. But sometimes when you're ingesting logs from loads of different locations, and by the way, this is getting like more of a massive web of stuff nowadays. It's the amount of tooling people have for things. And like, I ingest logs through this unknown tool that no one has ever heard of. And you're like, okay, great. Let me just go through that. And you're like, well, so there's so much hardware, so much software out there now for doing all of this analysis and all this logging that sometimes you just need to know what certain lines in a log mean or certain things in a log mean. And it's okay to use it for that sort of stuff. And hopefully you should get fairly similar results-ish every time that you do use it. But yeah, if you're posting big chunks of data into it, yeah, expect different, wildly weird results to come back sometimes. It's not reliable for that stuff. Definitely shouldn't be used for forensics.
Yeah. And so Burps is kind of interesting as well. They have integrated their own AI, and I think they've given every pro user like 10,000 credits or something. And they definitely, if you want to integrate it into extensions, it's definitely disabled by default. So you have to basically, if you install an AI extension or an extension that uses AI, you have to manually enable it for that specific extension, which is good. I think it's a good thing to do. Yeah, there's stuff like you can select like a line in a request or response, right click and basically ask the AI, hey, what does this mean? Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that you were talking about. Like, where is the customer data going? Because requests and responses, if you're using Burp Pro, like 99% of the time, that's going to be customer data of some kind, right? Even if it's totally benign, right? Even if it's literally, if it was just a random header that was added by the browser, it's just tricky because I mean, technically that's customer data, I guess. It's not really in the sense, but I mean, it was data sent to a customer as part of, browsing their web app as part of a pen test. It's just a tricky line. We don't use it at work, like we don't use AI at work just because of that reason. I think we would feel differently and this is what we obviously encourage, we would encourage Portswigger to develop some kind of private instance of their LLM, right? Yeah. And this is like the same with like Collaborator. When Collaborator came out, so Collaborator, for those of you who don't know, is basically a tool that you can, technically the default version does run in Portswigger's infrastructure. It listens for incoming HTTP requests. It listens for, I believe, SMTP and DNS. And effectively, you can use it to hunt for like SSRFs, right? So server-side request forgeries. If you can cause the application to reach out to that server, it will log it and it will tell you. And you can create a private instance of this. And we have one. Most pen test companies use a private instance of Burp Collaborator. And that just ensures that customers' infrastructure isn't just randomly talking to Portswiggers. Yeah. It's talking to yours, which I feel like maybe most customers wouldn't care about. Maybe most customers would be fine. But there's a non-zero percentage of customers who would have a real issue if their infrastructure started talking to a third party that they haven't directly contracted with, in this case, Portswigger.
Yeah.
And that's why the private instance exists.
100%. I love that way. I love the way collaborators say, like, we have our own collaborators. And so I imagine you guys do too, obviously. And it's such a neat solution to that problem of where the client data goes, because that's kind of that is the big thing with using AI in pen testing. Is like, for example, we have a number of things like government contracts, and it's like quite sensitive clients who operate in that sort of space. Like there are some tests where we're not even allowed to like take the hard drives in our laptops like off-site afterwards. Did you ever do any of those when you were over here? I can't even remember. Yeah. There were some, like, we've been to like data centers before, you and I, where we've sat down and like you've had to hand your hard drive over at the end of the day, or you've had to work on like a hard drive, like a external one or something like that, and boot it off, and then you just sort of hand that over at the end of the day type of thing. So in those sorts of sensitive situations with those sorts of people, like, yeah, we can't. If that's a level to of like extremes that we go to just to go and do a pen test of something, yeah, like those sorts of clients are not going to want to see you like pumping information out to any IA, no matter like how trusted it is. That's just going to be a big no right from the get go. So yeah, I'd love to see a solution like that where we could run our own. That'd be neat. Put it in the suggestions box.
I already have.
You already have, yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well done. I'll do the same. So, offensive side of a coin. So we talked a bit about the defensive side, using it for tooling and like big no-nos. Like, obviously, the offensive side doesn't have such constraints. Like if you're legitimately attacking a target and you've got a problem about where your AI is sending data to, you probably need to like reorganize your priorities a little bit. But there is this discussion about, can LLMs go away and generate working exploits? And there's a number of prongs to this question, I feel, because there's been people in our industry sort of predicting the rise of AI malware for a very long time now, and it's never really materialized in the sort of way that everyone has expected it to. And then along came LLMs and everyone was like, oh, there's going to be this massive explosion of ransomware all over the place. The world's going to end. It's going to be on fire. And the apocalypse didn't really come. Certain things accelerated, yes. We're certainly seeing. So last week, even, I was reverse engineering 2 bits of malware last week that were very, very obviously generated by AI, which is kind of interesting. And the targets that we were assessing, they'd left lots of scripts lying around. And these scripts were like denial of service and enumeration scripts. But these enumeration scripts, the comments in them were great because it was really, You know how like AI is just put comments in everywhere when you ask it to do some code. And it's like, this is a function.
AI is the best programmer.
It literally is.
For years, we've been trying to get programmers to comment their code, and none of them do. And the AI comes along, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, it can. And now it's doing that for malware. So like the job of reverse engineering scripts is like really easy now. This bit doesn't deny a service. This bit focuses on Windows. Yeah, okay, good. But it's interesting. It's working its way into that space as well. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to make a joke, which is the reason why there isn't as much AI ransomware as everyone expected. It's because it's making function calls that don't exist.
Yeah, it's probably true. It is actually true. Yeah, it's also not really revolutionizing things in that space particularly. It's speeding up a lot of people's workflows. And I think it's the same with, whenever I talk about this to people, everyone seems like surprised that attackers are using it. It's like, yeah, well, why wouldn't they? They're just programmers too at the end of the day, just with slightly misguided intentions. But, you know, programmers all around the world are using it, like even good ones occasionally. It's like, well, of course they're using it for stuff. And yeah, it's helping regular programmers speed up workflows. Of course, it's going to help attackers speed up their workflows as well. It hasn't really had the impact of like making something revolutionary, like going away and writing entirely its own exploit and then further execution train and then breaking into networks and then deciding what to do. Like, we're not that kind of world just yet.
There's an argument that that's just not even possible for today's AI. That's the thing.
No.
It's not this is the thing. It creates new stuff in terms of it understands concepts and can sort of string new things together and create new sentences. But I don't think it can actually, at least I haven't seen, and maybe I'm just talking out my ass right now, but I haven't seen anything like new research like come out of AI. And maybe someone in the comments will correct me, but like it's the problem is like even the most basic like logic AIs that have, like ChatGPT has some logical reasoning in it now. I feel like it hasn't got to the point where it's coming up with new information. That's always been traditional AI that's done that. But traditional AI is extremely guided, right? It's traditional AI works because there's a human there like getting it to do it. It has a specific task in mind. It doesn't know what the task is itself, but the AI algorithm is being fine-tuned to solve a particular task. It's not doing anything really new. That's the thing.
No, new stuff, it kind of sucks. And like, even if you go away from like exploit code or ransomware code or malware code or whatever you want to throw at it, even like writing poems and stuff, it will still base it on things like it knows and it's been trained on and training data. You ever done that fun picture generation thing where you ask it to like make you a clock face? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. And a full glass of wine.
Yeah.
Is another one. It can't do a full glass of wine, and the reasoning is when do you ever see a glass of wine that's full? Like you don't.
Yeah,
like wine glasses are all like full to the brim, I should say. There are plenty of pictures of full glasses of wine, but full to the brim, people just don't do that. So there aren't any real well, there are some, but there aren't any. There isn't a massive amount of training data for that.
The overwhelming pool of the training data is not a full to the brim glass. And it's the same with the 10 past 10 clock face. Like you ask it to give you a clock face, it always give you 10 past 10 because every picture of like a clock, if you're trying to sell it, or like a watch or something like that, all the marketing material, every image online is designed so you can see all the dials and show off the clock face nicely. So
exactly,
you ask it to do that and it will give you 10 past 10 every time. You can sort of manipulate it. Sometimes it will just give you more hands, which is hilarious. And then it's come up with like this weird hack around it. I go, no, give me 20 past 6, for example. And it will like print a digital 20 past 6 on top of the 10 past 10 clock face, which is a great resolution, like 10 out of 10 for problem solving.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's all about its training data. So coming out with new concepts is going to be a tricky one. But there is there's a bit of discussion at the moment about where that goes in terms of, specifically for people like ransomware groups, interestingly, where it goes in the future as we move away from generative and the sort of generative era and we move into the sort of the agent-based era, if you like, I suppose. And there's an interesting comment someone was making the other day about what if we have agent-based stuff making decisions about what exploit flow to take, or what path to take, or what attack chain to take through a network. And what, because a big part of like most incidents is, you know, working your way through a network and working out what a prize target is, or what an interesting bit of information is, or where you're gonna like what you're gonna bypass next, what you're gonna pivot to, what you're gonna laterally move to you know, launch your payload. Because no one wants to execute a ransomware payload where there's like every chance of it getting caught and doing nothing. That's just silly. So there's arguments about it, like how it taking away that sort of manpower requirement for doing that sort of stuff and getting them a bit further along the chain in an automated fashion. Whether that will come to fruition or not in the future, I don't know. Never usually like trying to predict the future. It's a bit weird at the moment, in case you hadn't noticed. But yeah, I still don't even think in that era it's going to be able to be, or looking at generating new exploit code as such.
Yeah.
With that said, it can definitely help a human develop better and newer working exploits. Yes. Going back to the original question, I've used it in the past just to step through the phases of like basic exploit development and just ask it questions about, you know, where do I take this next? And if you ask it to create you an exploit against this, it will just say, no, I can't do that. But if you break down the little steps and you just ask it baby steps by baby steps and going, I've got this debug information, or this is good, where should I jump to next? And it'll make like helpful suggestions, just as long as you don't make it obvious you're making an exploit. But again, it can help people that haven't done that stuff before get a kind of foot on the ladder and get started and have a sort of helping hand and speed up their world a little bit, for sure. So it's an interesting one, isn't it, to watch? But people are definitely using it out there. It's quite funny when they do as well.
It's quite funny when it fails.
Yeah. When you've got scripts that don't really work, or when they're like, properly fully commented and they're using function names that actually make sense as well. That's a really great one. Like, I love it when ChatGPT and stuff gives you function names that are like a meter long in length, but describes precisely what it does in the function name.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. I love it when they do that.
So one thing that I feel AI is slightly better at these days is I think capture solving. So it's honestly very good at reading words off images. At least ChatGPT is. So I was at ShmooCon earlier this year, and they have a quiz show in one of the evenings. It's a very fun quiz. It's kind of zany, but it's like this time it was multiple choice. And they would project the question and then 5 answers up on these big screens. And obviously we weren't cheating, but I was taking photos of some of the networking questions. We technically weren't supposed to use your phone at all. I was taking photos of some of the networking questions to send to a friend who is a network engineer.
A friend.
Later, to send to the later. Not to send at that moment. Trust me, the quiz was moving way too quickly for me to get any information directly back.
It's your friend called ChatGPT.
No. We did come third though. We didn't cheat. I promise you that. We did not cheat. I was taking photos though because there were some really good questions that I knew my friend would appreciate. Anyway, after the entire thing was over, it did occur to me, I wonder if ChatGPT could solve these. Okay, and so I did literally, I have ChatGPT on my phone, and I opened it, and this was after the show was over, I promise, right? I opened, and I just uploaded the image, and I said, can you answer this question? And it did it, firstly, within seconds. Like, it was scarily fast. Like, it was almost instantaneous, the response coming back. And it was correct. And I did this like 3 or 4 times with the images I'd taken. And it was just like, very, very good. So it's gotten very good at reading images. Like, so basically image to text. It can't do, for some reason, ChatGPT cannot do the reverse, right? So it can't, if you ask it to generate an image with certain text on it, it's like, it's going to be 90% accurate. And then there's going to be a few letters or even an entire word that is just completely balked and wrong. And I don't know why. But anyway, it's very good at reading. And so I feel like if you could definitely train an LLM to do capture breaking. And that could definitely be something that would be useful for bypassing certain, like, especially in pen tests. Because a lot of the time you want to scan something, or you want to do an automated scan of something in a web app pen test, and there will be a capture. And it's sort of a catch-22, because a capture is always a capture is what we recommend, right? For certain things, like for preventing login brute forces, registration brute force, for preventing forgot password brute force, almost anything that could be vulnerable to brute force. The go-to is just, put a capture there. And it's still good. I think it's still good advice. But the issue is, like, if you actually want to scan an endpoint that's protected by a capture, like, what are you going to do? You could go to the customer and say, hey, could you turn the capture off? Which is, it's okay to do. That's fine to ask. But the problem is, the capture is probably so ingrained into that process that there's just not a switch they can enable or disable, right? So that's actually quite a big ask. Whereas, like, disabling a WAF is quite an easy ask, or adding your IP to a allow list on a WAF is actually quite an easy thing to do. But a capture is usually nowadays so built into the whole process that you can't just say, oh, can you just disable it for us? So really the only solution is, ironically, to just break the capture using some kind of AI. And like I said, I've written scripts in the past to break captures using Python and training data. But I feel like these days, honestly, it might be easier to just use an LLM and sort of, So that's definitely a thing that could happen. Maybe that'll be a plugin for Burp, actually. Maybe a good Burp extension idea for someone in the audience who wants to write a Burp extension using Burp AI. Capture breaking. That would be interesting.
This is another one for your suggestions box.
I'm definitely going to add it to the Discord server.
Add that in as well, yeah, why not? On a similar note, I've used it for things like recognizing parts of circuit boards before. That was quite fun. Anyone that's ever done like hardware reversing or anything like that, or you want to know what various chips on a board do, or you're not quite sure, it's quite handy for that sort of stuff. I found out, as long as things are printed nicely on the front of it, it's quite good at just looking things up really quick. You just show it a board and it will just go, I see you've got this model board, here's a link to it. Well, you're using this chip, go and look at this up. And they provide you all the links to the manufacturers and all the data sheets and things like that. So I've used it for a few times of that. It's been scarily accurate. A lot of the time when you're doing that stuff, people will etch out things like the numbers on the front of the chips and things, so you can't just easily reverse what's there by looking at it. But even then, if you give it a picture of a whole board, it'll give you an educated guess based on where it is, what's running through it, and what its outputs are. It will have a pretty good guess about what it might be used for. So yeah, it's really handy for stuff like that. Yeah, I feel there's a lot more plugins to be written now. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see a Capaccia one. You could do that. I've nominated you for a project. Practical advice then, for now. I think like pen testing AI is always going to be an awkward one, especially with the data and not really knowing where it is going. And I think for now we're in that kind of status quo. But there are a lot of companies out there that are discovering building their own has a lot of merit to it. And I think I would urge people, if you haven't done that yet, go and play with something like a Llama or something like that, and just get your head around like how the basics of that work, because it sets up a lot of things very easily and smoothly for you without getting into the nitty gritty. If you just want to start playing with things, go jump down that route. And if you are starting to use those for local things, great. Just do it and get your company data and your client data away from like the anything public facing, because you never know when the data's going to end up. And like several of like the big players in like the LLM game have all had data breaches at some point in time, whether they've been minor ones when they started, like DeepSeek had one not long ago, ChatGPT's had them before, like they've all had them at some point. And it would be foolish to think that that's never ever going to happen again. So yeah, got to be super sensible where some of that data goes. But using it as a helper for a lot of things, I think is the way forward for now. It's definitely an aid to us and to everyone else using it. If you don't understand like something in a config, for example, look up the command. Yeah, you want it to develop something really basic for you in scripting? Great, go and do it. It might help your pen tests move along quicker and smoother. Just make sure you're reading the information it gives you and you understand what it's doing, because you might need to tweak it. You might need to change it a little bit. Otherwise it, might not work. or give you functions that don't exist, as per the earlier examples.
It's definitely here to stay. Like, even if you hate AI, and believe me, I'm a big AI skeptic, as a lot of people know, but like, it's here to stay. It would be dumb not to take advantage of it when you can, and if it makes sense to. And I think that's my takeaway. Like, I didn't think I'd be using ChatGPT as much as I do. We used it to generate a lot of the talking points in this episode. Full disclosure. But it does that really well. That's the stupid thing. It like we would have thought of all of these points on our own, but the fact that it was able to sort of just preempt us and come up with, and we didn't, the entire episode isn't AI generated, but like the talking points, the suggestions pretty much were. So it's just good for stuff like that. And so in that vein, I think, yeah, why not use it to make you a better tester at the end of the day?
Yeah. That's the space it really aids in, isn't it? It just shortcuts the process and will get you somewhere. It'll get you A to B much faster. But that's not to say you don't read what it's telling you or read the bit in between. Like you say, it's given us questions and talking points. It's not giving us the content or our opinions and things like that. It's just the same. It's the same in code. It'll give you some vaguely coherent code, but sometimes you might have to fill out the bit in the middle.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. I've been Tib3rius. He's been Andy Swift. This has been Across the Pondcast. You can find all of our social media links in the episode description or on acrossthepondcast.net. And we will see you next time.
Ta-ra, loves.
Thanks once again to Portswigger for sponsoring this episode. Check out portswigger.net/burp/AI to learn more about AI in Burp Suite.